Good afternoon. How's everybody's Monday going? Yeah, I love that. I love that. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so I believe that we are here to discuss the four models of the MREA. So I'm really excited that you chose to kind of tune on in to either get a refresher if you've already kind of read Gary's book and understand the basis of what we're talking about, or have a conversation for the very first time around the blueprint that allows you success in our industry. Because that's what I want you to view this as. This isn't somebody's opinion, right, about what makes a real estate agent successful, which is why I think I love it so much. There's no real subjectivity here. It's just an objective system, right? Because you know that Gary wrote this book based on interviewing the top 200 real estate agents in the country, right? Not the top 200 Keller Williams agents, the top 200 real estate agents, brand blind across the country. And what he found was that successful professional real estate agents pretty much did the same things to create their success. And so he looked at all of those and boiled them down to, okay, well, so on average, what do all these top agents have in common? And built these models from that research. So there's not a ton of us in the room today. So with that, I think I'm going to take a slightly different path forward. And that is kind of opening it up to you first to ask you, what is it you want the next 58 or so minutes to be about? What do you want to make sure that you leave here with? What's on your mind? What questions do you have? What do you want to make sure that we cover? You can go ahead and unmute and I will call on you, or you can raise your little blue bold hand. No, not bold. Zoom. At some point I'll get all these names correct. Mr. DiBiase, what do we have?
So I guess my question is, out of the four models, it's been a while since I read this. Is there one is there one specifically to start with, or is that to your choosing? And if so, which one would you focus on?
Got it. Great question. We'll answer that shortly. The answer is yes and no, believe it or not. The answer is the answer I give probably most often. It depends. We'll talk about what it depends on. Hey, and those of you who have no camera on, we would love to see your face. Because right now there's only a few of us. There we go. Thank you, Sherry Lee and Tanya. Oh, it's lovely. See, so much better when I can see your sparkling faces. What else? What else do you want to make specific mention of today? What else do you really want to make sure that we cover? Don't be shy. Nothing? Nobody else? The rest of you are all here just for the ride? Go ahead, Debbie.
My fascination is always, how do these models work together?
Yeah, great point, right? And it kind of goes along with Chris's question. Like, what order do you focus on them in, and how are they all cogs that all kind of fit together to help you grow and run a business? We will definitely make sure that we connect with all of that. Mariana, did you have another point to make?
For me, it was just the basics. It's the first time that I'm hearing about these four models. So I don't know how to compare either one if I don't have the basic information about them. That's it.
Got it. So you're looking for that kind of foundation on what these are and what they're about, so that then you can figure out how to use them to grow. I love that. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Anybody else going once? Going twice? All righty. So let's dive in then, and so we're all on the same page. and not to make that turn that into not to turn this into a comedy, but I will give you when available the pages in the book. And so we're all kind of starting from the same place. What we are talking about is we're talking about the 4 models that Gary wrote about in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? So if you're wondering what book we're referencing, it is the red book. It is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, otherwise known as the MREA, right? And so the very first thing I want to throw your way is, if you've never read the red book, if you've never read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, that is your very first activity. Right, we finish at 2 o'clock. So at 2:01, I would start reading from page 1. It's a really fast read, even for someone who is a slower reader like I am. It's a fast read, right? And so get through this book in the next 12 days or so. It should not take you much longer than that. And for some of you, you'll be done by Friday, right? If you haven't read it in the last 12 months, I would encourage you to go ahead and read it again.
They have it on audiobook too, Rick.
Yeah, they have it on audiobook too, and I'm gonna be a big downer on that, because I can tell you that listening to it while you're in the car is not the same as reading it and taking notes about, because what I want you to do is I want you to read it through with a piece of paper and a pen next to it. And then, well, if you choose, you can use a highlighter and a pen in the actual book. That to me is like desecration. So I don't mark up my books except with little tabs of paper so I can reference it again. Debbie's going to show you her book and how horribly desecrated it actually is, with folding things over and bending the pages and writing, and oh my goodness, just horrible. Yes, it's. I wish there was like a DCF for books. I would call DCF for books on you, Mrs. Orr, because that's just horrible. Anyway, depending on how anal you are about books, you can either take notes outside or write in the book. The point is, having the book and reading it through with your eyeballs and your brain is a different experience than listening to someone tell you about these models and systems, right? And it allows you the opportunity to stop and take some notes about how this can really affect you and your business. It allows better memory of recall of the information that you are reading. Remember, we only retain about 7% of the things that we hear. However, we retain far more, 3 or 4 times more, those things that we read, and then especially the ones we read and then take a note on. So that wasn't to pee on the parade of audiobooks, and yet I think from this perspective, when you're really looking at this from a business owner's perspective, you want that book in your hand so that you can kind of turn the pages, flip back and forth, compare and contrast, take those notes, and really go back and refer. And if you won't do it any other way, then certainly go ahead and listen to it on audio. But I would say read it first and then go and do the audio. So that is homework piece number 1, is actually read the book. Obtain and read the book. So let's dive in quickly and just kind of outline what these 4 models are. They can be found throughout the book. I'm going to give you the pages that correspond to some graphics so that you can do quick reference to some of these models. And yet I have obtained for you a bunch of the graphics that I'll share with you on the screen. Hold on half a second. All right, let's start here. So to kick off our discussion, the 4 models are this. The 4 models are the economic model, the lead generation model, the budget model, and the organization model. And so to help you kind of stay focused on what each of those things means, what they refer to, I like this description. The economic model is an outline of the money you'll make. It's the pro forma for your business. It's you plugging in numbers to say, okay, if I'm going to earn $100,000, this is what I need to focus on in terms of appointments. To me, the biggest plus, the biggest benefit from the economic model is you get to understand and decide how much you want to earn, and then turn that income into the activities it takes to get there. Can you see, without an economic model, you might just have a kind of a daydream about earning $250,000 this year? If you don't know what it takes to actually do that, it's only ever just that. It's just a dream, right? The economic model is what you use to turn that desired income amount into appointments so that you can take action around those appointments. The lead generation model answers the question, well, how am I going to do that? So if the economic model turns money into appointments in terms of the numbers that drive your business, the lead generation model then says, okay, well, how am I actually going to find, set, and hold those appointments? So the lead generation model answers how you'll make the money you just outlined in the economic model. The budget model then turns around and outlines for you, or gives you some guidelines, some parameters to operate within about how you'll spend the money. Now, that doesn't mean how you'll spend the income once you pay yourself, once it moves from business to personal. The budget model is about how you'll spend it inside of the business. What business expenses do I have, and how am I going to make sure that they fall into the range that makes the best sense? And then, of course, organization, you don't get to grow very quickly or very far without additional people, right? No one succeeds alone. And so the organizational model talks with you about who you're going to be in business with, who you're going to incorporate into your world to help you make the money that you outlined in the economic model. Who's going to do some of the activities that you've outlined in the lead generation model. And because you're not in business with people who are doing things for you for free, part of the budget model outlines how you'll pay those people that you'll be in business with. So just from space, those are the four models of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the MREA, and what they're used for. Economic, lead generation, budget, and organization. Any questions on that so far? Okay. So let me give you, because I just have so many of these spectacular little graphics to share with you, except they're all on a different page. So give me half a second to find the right one, the next one. So let me share this one with you real quick. Oftentimes people ask me the question, well, why models? Why are we always talking about models? Models, models, models. Marsha, right? What's the big whoop about a model? Well, the big whoop can be summarized right here, which I think is on page 37 in your book, if I'm not mistaken. And this kind of talks about why a model. You can accomplish just about anything, right, without a model. And that usually means that you are basing your decisions on how creative you decide to be. It's like you wake up and say, hey, you know what? I heard this yesterday. I think I'm going to try this. Or I think that this might work. I'm going to go in this direction. And that ends up giving you the stability that you see on the right-hand side of this graphic, where you've got creativity, which is the point of the triangle, as the foundation, and you're trying to lay things on top of that. Can you see how unstable that actually is in terms of a foundation, because it's the point of a triangle? versus having tried and true models and systems as the foundation of your business, like the left side of this graphic, which is the base of the triangle, and then laying creativity on top of that. You have every right, and I encourage you to be as creative as you possibly can and want to be inside of your business, as long as you're laying it on top of a firm foundation. These 4 models are that firm foundation. They're kind of the pillars of the real estate business. Does that make sense to everybody? So if you had your choice to build your business on a stable foundation like on the left or an unstable foundation on the right, which do you choose? Now, of course, everyone's going to say, I choose the left. However, what's real is that many of us either started or are still working with a structure that looks like the triangle on the right, right? It's all about our ideas first, and then we get kind of this. We get the tipsiness. It's like the drunken triangle. So, what does that mean for us next? Give me a second, I'm getting there. So if you take a look at for those of you who have the book, we're on page 131. I want to give you some reference points to these models as we start to go through each of them. Pages 122 and 123 kind of outline for you what we're looking at. Let me share this graphic with you. Now this one looks a little fuzzy on my screen. So if it's fuzzy on your screen, I'll kind of read through. And again, it's pages 122 and 123 if you're looking for a reference point. So that the first model at the top there is the economic model. And it answers or outlines for you the numbers that you have to hit with a focus on 2 things: appointments and conversion. So the economic model, which I'm going to show you an outline of in just a moment, specifically is that piece that outlines your numbers for you. Again, it's your pro forma for your business. Every successful business operates from a pro forma. What's a pro forma? Anybody know? Can anyone give me a definition of a pro forma?
I would call it a plan based on metrics.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it's a financial plan, right, for the business based on some assumptions that you've made about how the business will work. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And so here's the thing: if you're running a business right now that you haven't written a pro forma for, can you see then that you actually have no real idea of what the expectations of that business should be? Which means any result that comes your way oftentimes is an acceptable result, regardless of whether it's making the business profitable or not, because you haven't actually outlined foundationally what that business is supposed to do and why. Go ahead, Debbie.
And I would go back to where you started here with a focus on appointments and focus on conversions, because those are metrics that you can control, and you control it on a daily basis. And this is where that creativity thing comes into play. We think, oh, I have so much to do in my business. I don't have time to lead generate, that dirty word, lead generate, which all it means is uncover new business to get to appointments. When you keep your focus on appointments, that's when you can control the results in your business. I think you have some examples about that too, don't you, Rick?
Oh, I absolutely do. And it's the reason the pro forma, it's the reason the economic model works. Let me restate that. It's the reason I know the economic model works, right? Because I have coached people from earning $100,000 to earning $350,000 in a year over the course of a 12 to 18 month period of time, making that shift by simply focusing on appointments. And if you don't know how many appointments you need to go on each week, it's impossible for you to actually keep that as a focus and track against it, right? So the idea of the economic model, and I'm going to put the economic model on the screen for you. Now, this is the economic model to net yourself $1 million. If that looks too big and scary, and you want to net $100,000 this year, well, then just divide everything by 10, right? I mean, we will bring you through the numbers, right? But this is an example based on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? So it's $2.4 million in gross income, which nets you $1 million. This says 2.5 million. I thought it was 2.4, but we'll go with Gary's 2.5 million, right? So at $2.5 million, you've got $1 million coming into you. But what does it take to get there? So I'm going to give you a shortcut, right? Debbie talked about appointments and conversion. If you look down here, this economic model has some assumptions. Do you see where these percentages are? Right, on the buy side and on the sell side? Let's stay on the listing side for a second. So if we know that we're looking to earn a certain amount of money and we know our average commission amount, if we divide the amount of money we'd like to earn by the average commission amount, you get the total units you have to sell for the year. And then you have to take a look and see, okay, well, am I going to, how many of those are going to be listing side and how many are going to be buy side? You get to make that choice. In this example, it's 50-50. Right? Most businesses that I know are not really 50-50. They're more like 60-40, one way or the other. And some businesses are even more askew in their division of list side, buy side, more like 70-30, either list side heavy or buy side heavy, right? You need to kind of take a look and see what that is for you in your business. I get asked the question a lot, well, what's the right version of that? Well, there is no real right version of that. To strive for 50-50, if you're heavy on the buy side right now, strive for a 50-50 business. Once you get there, strive again to add another 10% on the listing side. What's interesting is that the more you push on the listing side of the business, what shows up? Buyers, right? So the heavier you try and get on the list side, well, unless you're ignoring the buyer leads altogether, the buyers kind of show up when you are listings heavy. And so as long as you are then closing those buyers, you get to put 2 and 2 together and continue in that 50-50 realm. Right, but let's keep going down the side here because I want to point out to you the assumptions that are made here. So the first assumption is the percent of your total units sold that are actually going to be listings. So in this case, it's 50%. The next assumption, and again, I want you to just forget what the numbers are, right? Because again, these are assuming $1 million in net income. So forget what these numbers actually say. I want you to focus on these conversion opportunities for you because this is another use of this tool. So the second assumption you're going to make is what percent of listings that you took actually will close, right? That's agreement to close. So how many listings did I take that actually went to a closing? Has anyone ever taken a listing that didn't close? Right? It happens. You will know your numbers. Some of you take listings and 90% of the time they close. Some of you take listings and 40% of the time they close, 30% of the time. Sometimes that has to do with the market and oftentimes it has to do with you, right? No judgment, but you have to know what that number is to start in a place that then will help you diagnose where you have opportunities to improve. Go ahead, Deb.
I was just going to say this year, everything closes. You can count on, you can make that 90% and still be conservative.
Yeah, that is so true, right? So true. And so if you're stuck and you don't know, for me, I would use 50%. Now, again, this year, as Debbie points out, if you can manage to get something on the market and you haven't completely gone berserk with the list price, it should sell. So maybe if you have no idea what your number is, instead of 90, use 70. In a more normalized market, I encourage people to use 50% because I'd rather you assume low and then show up and prove that number wrong over time, because then you'll just make more than you outlined. And then this other opportunity here for conversion is appointments to listing agreements. So how many listing appointments do you go on versus the number of listings you take? Do you go on an appointment and take the listing every single time? Or do you average 2 to 1, 3 to 1? What does that look like? Right, so this example says that when I have a listing appointment, 75% of the time, so 3 out of 4 listing appointments I go on, I actually take a listing. And then 70% of the time, the listing that I take goes ahead and closes. So when you do the math down, if you're looking for, in this example, 350 total sold units, it's going to bring you down to how many appointments do I need on the list side to feed that side of the business. Now, of course, those are appointments in a year, right? Oftentimes what I find is when the numbers are more like $100,000 or $150,000, something $200,000, you're in the realm of 1 to 3 new appointments every week. 1 to 3 new appointments every week. And that's total list side by side. That's added together. So just in case you're wondering how this works, if you're looking to earn less than $1 million this year or in the next 12 months, generally speaking, when you do the math, it converts to 1, 2, or 3 in that realm, new appointments every single week. What do I mean by new appointments every week? This is an important concept to get, so somebody's got to answer it. What do I mean by new appointments in a week?
New clients to make appointments for listings or buyers. Ah.
Oh my goodness. Did you just fall off of the chair?
Yeah, I'm driving.
Oh goodness.
I'm going to an appointment.
Well, that's excellent, except we certainly don't want you crashing, so be cautious. Right, so new appointments are this. If, say I meet Chris on a Sunday and I take him out as a buyer for the very first time, and then I see him again on Tuesday, and I see him again on Friday. That's not 3 new appointments. It's 1 new appointment, right? Because he's not going to buy 3 houses. And oftentimes we get so excited that we have somebody in the car or that we're going to see somebody again, right, that we forget that they only have a house to sell. They're only going to buy 1 house. So they count as a unit, regardless of how many times you have to meet with them. Personally, I used that understanding to help me get way more efficient in how many times I was actually seeing somebody, right? Regardless of the side of the table I was on. If it was a listing, like make sure all of your documentation and everything you need is with you the one time you meet the seller. I'm not going back 97 times to get a document signed here or an initial here or get a new key or whatever, right? You build in levels of efficiency when you recognize that they only have 1 house to sell. So I'd like to actually meet them 1, maybe 2 times and then move that forward. The same with a buyer. Are you doing valid buyer consultations so that you have a clear understanding and the buyer has a clear understanding of what it is they're searching for, so that I'm not meeting with that buyer 97 times? Trust me when I tell you, regardless of what some of you may have experienced, it doesn't take 3 months to sell a buyer a house. A buyer doesn't need to see 59 different houses before they make a decision. Not if you're doing a proper consultation, right? And so you become more and more efficient as you recognize that you need new appointments each week. Now, I'm going to make one other comment about the economic model, because this is not an entire class on the economic model, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most important concepts to understand about building that pro forma for your business. Those percentages on the conversions that we just talked about is also a way for you to help you diagnose your own business. Where are my areas of improvement? So here's what I mean by that. So say Chris and I are having a coaching consult, and Chris says, you know what, I just don't get it. I'm lead generating like crazy. I'm getting all of these appointments for listings, but I'm not taking the number of listings that I need to take. So do you see that that's one of those assumptions? That's one of those conversion percentages. He's getting a ton of appointments, however, not converting them and listing them. So one of a couple of things is going on there. He's either getting appointments with people who are not terribly motivated, in which case we can work on finding more motivated sellers to have listing appointments with, or he's leaving money on the table with his listing consult, right? There may be an opportunity for Chris to improve his listing consultation. Maybe he has a great consultation, but he never closes. He never actually asks for the business, right? Lots of different things could be involved in there. However, you see, if we go to that conversion point, we can start to ask other questions to help diagnose so that you understand better where you need some work. If instead Chris said to me, you know what, I'm getting tons of appointments, I'm listing a ton of houses and none of them are selling, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Right? Maybe then we've identified an area of weakness that is around pricing or expectation setting. Because he's clearly closing the deals, getting the for sale signs up there, but no one's buying those houses. So I want you to look at the economic model as a way for you to ask questions about your business. If you feel stuck on either side, ask yourself some questions. How many appointments did I go on and how many listings did I take? How many buyers did I sign? Is that where I'm weak? Or am I weak finding the appointments? If you're weak finding the appointments, then we move to the lead generation model and start looking there for some additional opportunities for you. Do you see how you can use the economic model to help you diagnose and then ask additional questions to help solve some of your stuck points? Because everybody gets to a point where they're stuck. Yes? Okay, at least 2 of you are nodding your head, so I'll take that as a good sign and we'll move forward. So the second model is the lead generation model. And remember, the lead generation model answers, how am I going to find all of the appointments I just outlined in my economic model? How am I going to find them? It further asks the question, am I going to be prospecting or marketing for my leads? What specifically am I doing to connect and convert out of my database, which, by the way, is the number one source of business for most real estate agents in the United States, both buy side and list side. The number one source of business for most real estate agents in the United States, both buy side and list side, is the database, which is why we break it out separately in this conversation about the lead generation model. And in your lead generation model, do you have a focus on listings? Why are we focused on listings? Talk to me about that while I find the next graphic. Why a focus on listings?
Because I think the listing agent is in control.
The listing agent is absolutely in control, Karen, and why is that? Do we know why?
Because you are in a position to advertise the house to to the world, basically. You're not just working with one particular person. Plus, you're in the driver's seat in terms of the negotiations.
So taking listings brings you, just so we're all clear, lots of different opportunities, right? Lots of different opportunities. Those opportunities are things like exposure, marketing, signs in yards, name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
When you focus on listings, what shows up? We talked about it before. You almost can't stop them from showing up when you focus on listings.
Buyers.
Buyers, absolutely right. For those of you who have focused on buyers, do listings just automatically show up when you focus on buyers?
No.
No, they do not, right? So the listing side of the business is the far more leveraged side of the business. And by leveraged, we mean if you focus there, other stuff comes from it, so that you spend less time building and growing than you would on the buy side. Chris, did you have something?
Well, I was going to say buyers for sure. And then I was going to say something in effect to time. You should be able to handle much more listings in regards to buyers. And I don't know if the ratio is right or not, but I've heard it's anywhere from 3 to 1.
Yeah, so I would agree with that ratio, and let's put some numbers around it, right? How many truly A buyers who are actively searching for a home to buy right now can a single solo agent handle effectively at any given time? I believe that number to be like 4 or 5, right? 4 or 5 real A focused, I'm looking to buy a house now buyers at any given time without help. How many listings can that same solo agent handle at any given time? The number definitely is at least 3 times that, right? 12 to 15. Past 15, you may need some administrative help, right? To help you push to 20. But solo, 10 to 15 is not an unrealistic number of listings to be managing and handling at any given time, right? In the same amount of time that it takes to handle and be with 5 real A buyers. So yeah, I would agree with that ratio of 3 to 1, Chris. So lead generation ultimately comes from, and I'm sorry, the graphic I have for you. So lead generation model shows up on page 137. And the graphic I have for you is, for some reason, the graphics are crazy blurry, and I'm not quite sure I understand why. So I apologize for that. And yet again, write these numbers down from the book and check them out in the book. 137 is the kind of the target graphic, which talks about how you're going to build, where you're going to build. And so what I mean by that is, where are you focused? Are you focused on people that you already know or strangers? Right in the center there, you have those allied resources, those raving fans that you know, that know you. And
there's no graphic up on the thing, and we're just seeing you.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, I don't quite, the graphic for this one is too blurry. It wouldn't help if I put it up. So the idea of working from your raving fans in the middle of that, just picture like a bullseye archery target, raving fans in the middle. And then as you go out, you have your past clients and your sphere, your close-in sphere. And then the next ring out would be your other acquaintances and people that you've met who kind of know you and you know them. And then that outer ring is the haven't met, it's the strangers. And the whole idea of that graphic that looks like a bullseye is for you to continue. If you stood in the center, you have to keep reaching out to the outer rims and pulling them closer and closer. So anybody who's on the outer circles, you pull them closer and closer into you to get them more and more tightly connected to your business. And from a database perspective, right, the lead generation model talks about some tools that we have, right? Most importantly, the 36 touch. And the 36 touch program is that program that says we're going to set people up with some systems. Perhaps 24 of them are automated because you have them in command and you're dripping them every other week with some new something or other. Perhaps another 4 of them are quarterly phone calls to check in and ask for business. Perhaps another 4 of them are quarterly postcards that you might send, right? And then an event or 2 to kind of round things out for the year. That's an example of what a 36 touch program could look like. But here's the main point. Your lead generation model basically says, where am I finding the business and how am I going to secure it? Divided into 2 separate categories. What am I prospecting for, which is specifically what activities am I focused on to find business? What am I doing with my database? How am I communicating with them and how often? What other pillars have I chosen? Am I going to focus on open houses? If I'm focused on open houses, how many will I do a month? Which turns into how many will I do a year? Where am I going to find those open houses? Is it my own inventory or am I borrowing from someone else or am I doing a mixture of the 2? Am I going to start the expired program to call current expireds? Or am I going to start an expired program that has me calling past expireds from the past 3 years? Right? Lots of different places to get your business. Am I building an agent-to-agent referral network? Am I basing my lead generation on social media? Am I doing paid advertising? Am I buying leads? All of those things are valid paths forward. Your lead generation model, however, needs to outline for you, okay, if you need 12 closed pieces of business to earn the income you want, which you got on your economic model, where are those 12 coming from? And don't make the mistake of saying, well, how should I know it? You know, anything I would outline is just a guess. No, you're missing the point. You are outlining where those 12 are coming from so that you can focus your activities to make sure that they show up. If you decide that half of them are going to come from your database and another half are going to come from open houses and expireds, I'll tell you a quick story. I was coaching an agent a couple of years ago who was frustrated. And I said, well, tell me what's driving your frustration. And she said, well, I'm just off of on my business plan. I said, well, what part in particular? She said, well, the thing I'm most off on is my expireds. I was supposed to have 3 expireds closed by now and another 3 to close by the end of the year. And I said, well, how many have you closed? And she said, 0. And I said, well, how many have you listed? And she said, 0. And I said, well, why do you think that is? And she said, well, because I'm not calling expireds. Well, yes, that would do it, right? So be careful about building a business plan in that pro forma to say, I'm going to attract 6 closings from expireds and then never do anything to actually attract closings from expireds. So you see, it's not a guess, it's your plan. That's why it's a strategy. It's why it's an outline to help you move forward. And the other side of that is, what are you doing from a marketing perspective? Are you doing things that are more marketing based? Are you running some Facebook ads through command? Are you doing some farming to a neighborhood, some postcard farming, maybe once a month to cultivate those 200 or 400 people that you're doing mailings to? What else are you doing that enhances the prospecting you're doing from a marketing perspective? Debbie.
May I share a screen, which is MREA 2 lead generation model?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it is a good visual. This bullseye has been alive for 15 years, and yet this one is just helpful to me, and hopefully it will be to you. And I'm going to just make it bigger if I can here. There we go. if you're seeing that. Because it takes, I want to move this so that's out of the way. There we go. It starts with your prospecting. So you see lead generation over here, the activity over on the side, cultivates your captured leads and contacts in the middle here. And then your pipeline is all of the activities that relate to all of your cultivate. As Rick just said, some of the marketing is going on in here and the interaction. This is the, see, there it is. That's that. The interaction is going on in the cultivate stage, and then it takes you down to your appointments. The whole goal of starting up here is to get to this. This is the sales map. So appointment, actively selling or actively buying, under contract, and then close. I think it represents the process well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's notice how on the top it says both prospecting and marketing go into the top of that funnel, right? Which brings you leads, which by the way are useless to you unless you can convert those leads, right? Oftentimes I find that agents don't have lead generation issues, they have lead conversion issues. They're sitting on a big bucket of leads. They're just not talking to them and or closing for appointments with them.
Yeah, and so part of the lead generation process is to move a lead to an actual contact where there's two-way communication going on. And it's a very formulaic process, and it has numbers behind it, as Rick is just pointing out with the conversion numbers, et cetera.
One of the most important parts of the graphic that Debbie just showed was the bottom portion, or that middle portion, where it outlined cultivation, right? Recognize that the reality of running a business is that every person you meet is not going to need to buy or sell real estate at the moment you meet them, right? As a matter of fact, most people transact business once every 5, 7 to 10 years. And so depending on where you meet them along that curve, you have a cultivation process that has to go on so that you can then be the agent of choice when that moment arises when they're looking to transact business again. It doesn't make them a bad lead. It just makes them a lead that's on a different part of the curve than you would like them to be, right? Your want for immediate business doesn't translate into their need to transact business. So just remember that the way you solve that is continuing to generate leads, continuing to ask for the business to attempt to convert. And when someone says simply, I just bought a house 12 months ago, I'm not looking to buy another house today, we then cultivate them for referrals and cultivate them for their next opportunity, either to transact business themselves on the for an owner occupied, or perhaps turn them into investors. But the cultivation is crazy important.
I still have a favorite thing, a conversation with leads, which is where they say, well, the good news is I'm not in a hurry. It's like, oh, that's too bad. Next, you just need more and more. And that lead generation model has a way to, as Rick is describing, cultivate so that when the time is right, you're still there to pick it up. We have been selling people who have been in our pipeline for 10 years and they just weren't ready. And now they surface, but it's a process, and that's the model of lead generation. It's not once and done.
Yeah, indeed. Man, oh man, I'm going to tell you what, guys, I apologize because so many of these, I have all these great graphics to show you today. And for reasons I cannot explain, when I pop them up on the screen, they are just all blurry. So we will soldier forward anyway. in our last 10 minutes, I want to just talk quickly through the budget model and the organizational model. Here's what you need to know, first and foremost. For most of you, the two that we just spent the most time on are the two most important that you need to be focused on. You need to understand the pro forma for your business and the numbers that make your business sing, which is the economic model, right? To answer Chris's question, if you had to choose one or two to focus on, it's the first two. What does my business call upon me to do from an activities perspective, right? Driven by how many appointments I'm looking, how many appointments I need to secure and go on each week to earn the stated desired amount of income. And then the lead generation model, which says, where am I searching and how am I searching systematically for those opportunities? If you do nothing else but work those two models after our time together today, you will have an outline and a plan to run your business off of. The last two models, the budget model and the organizational model, give you opportunities. The budget model, which appears on page 157 and page 193 if you're writing things down. 157 and 193 are really good pages for you to take a look at from a graphics perspective. Right, 157 just simply talks about percentages in terms of how you're going to spend what you'll spend. It does cost money to run a business, right? And so this kind of gives you an idea that in the budget model of a millionaire real estate agent, 30% or so goes to cost of sale. Now in this example, this assumes that you have cost of sale that is more than just you, right? And what that means is cost of sale typically refers to other people that you pay money, that you split the commissions with, right, in order to secure the sale, such as a showing assistant or a buyer's agent, or perhaps even a referral fee that you pay, right, is cost of sale. So the point here being 30% of your income. For most of you on this call, that 30% is going to stay mostly in your pocket, right? Because you're paying yourself that before you have other people. Right? The other 30% that this little graphic shows are your expenses. And the breakdown of how those expenses actually show up. Now, again, if you have a smaller business today, you likely won't spend 30%, right? You may spend less than that. And the budget model is to understand kind of how and where you're spending money. Maybe because you don't necessarily have a salary, although I would suggest to you that you look at that salary portion as another means to pay yourself. Right? I heard I think it was Cody Gibson talk about this the other day, where, what if you started to look at a closing as you paying yourself 4 different times, so that you pay yourself if you're selling a buyer. You get paid a $10,000 commission. Well, maybe $3,000 of it. So you have a $10,000 commission, right? You've paid Keller Williams. You get $10,000 in a paycheck. Maybe 30% of it goes to pay you as the buyer specialist. Another 10 or 15% of it goes to pay you as the administrator, because you're also doing the paperwork. And I can't remember what the third way to pay yourself was. There's profit is the fourth one. I can't remember what the third one is. I'll think of it. Oh, I know what it is, the lead generator, right? So you have to pay someone to generate the leads. So maybe 10% goes to pay you as the lead generator, 30% goes to pay you as the buyer's agent, and another 10 or 15, maybe even 20% goes to pay you as the administrator. And then what's left over is profit. So now as the owner of the business as well, you may also take a portion of or all of that profit. Here's the point I'm trying to make. And I don't mean to be confusing. The budget model doesn't not work for people who have smaller businesses. And the way that you can think about the budget model working for you if you have a smaller business is that you get paid a bunch of different times when you're a solo agent inside of the same transaction for doing different roles inside of that transaction. Because you're a solo agent, you're the only one who's there to do it. So when you look at the budget model and say, well, I don't have cost of sale of 30%, I don't have operating expenses of 30%. Well, you do, you're just paying yourself, right? It's the difference between thinking like a real estate agent and thinking like a business owner. And when you start to think about breaking down what you do as a solo agent into these categories, it will help you as you grow to say, okay, well, now I'm going to pay somebody else that 30% to my buyer side, or I'm going to pay them 40% or 50% to do my buyer side. It's not me any longer, right? And you still get to work within this model. Does that make sense to everybody? Because I know, for most of you on this call, you look at those numbers and think, okay, well, that doesn't apply to me. So what I'm trying to do is give you a way it does apply to you by breaking things down, because your business has expenses. Minimally, track all of your expenses in a profit and loss statement, and we can come back to the, am I paying myself versus not paying myself? Minimally run a profit and loss so that you know whether or not your business is actually making money. Far too many real estate agents believe that because they had closings and got paid a paycheck, that they're making money, because they haven't tracked their expenses and what it costs to actually be in business. I don't know about the rest of you, but this is not the cheapest industry to stay afloat in, right? You have board dues, you have MLS costs, you have licensing costs, you have continuing education costs, you have to put gas in your car and marketing costs and all that stuff to work with the buyers and sellers that you're dealing with. You have affiliation costs with a brokerage. You have taxes to pay. You have a whole bunch of things. So it's not inexpensive to stay plugged in as a real estate agent. You need to be tracking all of that and make sure that you're at least making all of that back plus a penny in order to be profitable. Right? Too many real estate agents closed 3 or 4 pieces of business last year and thought, oh, look, I made X amount of dollars. Except if you really tracked what they spent to make that money, they might be better off going and asking, do you want fries with that? And I don't say that to be judgmental. I say it to be realistic. I say it to allow us to really look and say, what am I spending, both time, effort, and money, and what's the return on that? And without some sort of a budget and tracking via a profit and loss statement, it all just is a guess. Yes, ma'am.
Here's where I would say this is where the models work together as well, because your profit and loss statement can also be a diagnostic for you in terms of what you're spending money on and what return on investment you're getting, and how you can tweak the activity or the expense, the product, to get more out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and that's enormous, and that's and here's the caveat: you have to be tracking that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in order to know what to do. It's what tells you what to do.
So lastly, in our waning minutes, I just want to pop on the screen, give you the page number. It's page 197. That outlines for you the organizational model of the millionaire real estate agent, right? And on page 202 is the outline for the path to the 7th level. Now, the 7th level is outlined sort of here, where you have kind of maneuvered yourself out of the business because you've grown through having some, the first step would be hiring some administrative help, right? The second step is you hiring some additional administrative help. The third step, or level 4, right? Because the first step is just you solo. Level 4 then becomes you hiring some additional buyer leverage, either with a buyer specialist or a showing assistant, right? A bunch of different versions on how to do that. And then growing from there, eventually moving yourself into that CEO position where you have 3 managers, right? Someone who's managing the list side, someone who's managing the administrative side, and someone who manages the buy side. And then further in the new MREA 2 models, these 2 managers, the listing specialist and the buyer specialist, actually report to somebody else who's just the director of sales. So now you have director of sales, director of administrative work, and then more of like an operations person. But here's the point. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because for way too many of you on this call, it's not, I'd rather you read through the leverage model, the organizational model, because it's not the next step for you, right? It feels a little bit far away. What I want you to take away from it is you run into a ceiling with what you can produce and handle on your own. And so for those of you who have expectations of growth, the very first step on that growth path is to find administrative help. Either full-time or part-time, either in the office or virtual, you find administrative help to offload the paperwork portion so that you can spend time finding and converting and closing business. And then the very next step is you get more administrative help because you are preparing for more business because you're about to get into business with another agent, either as a showing assistant or as a buyer specialist, right? So understand that the path for you from solo agent to something more, the very first thing you're going to do is increase your sales. The next thing you're going to do is hire some version of administrative help. And again, the very next thing you do after that is hire some more administrative help so that you are ready to support additional closings once you get into business with that next hire, which is that lead, which is the buyer specialist or the showing assistant. What I want you to take away from this conversation on organizational model is the help that you seek in order to grow is administrative, first, foremost, and always. Too many people jump to, I want to be in business with another agent because I don't want to deal with my buyers. Or the other side is, I don't like listings. I want to be in business with someone who can handle my listings. You don't get to be in business with anybody until you're in business with administrative assistants first, so that you've created a foundation for people to want to belong to your organization. But this is a growth model. The organizational model is just an org chart to help you see into the future as to how do I get from selling 5 houses a year to 12 houses a year to 20 to 50 to 100. Nobody succeeds alone. You need people in seats on a bus in order to get there. Questions, comments, concerns before we finish?
So when you talk about the bus, for example, are you saying you should get a bus first instead of a car where you pile in more people than you can fit? Just get a bus from the get-go?
Well, that's a great question, and so I wasn't using that analogy exactly in that regard, and yet I don't think it's a bad one, Karen, because I would look at the bus as your goals. I would build off of big goals, and then use these models to support those big goals, even if at present you're not quite hitting them or ready to hit them. Because when you build something off of big models based on big goals, and then you grow into them, you don't have to stop growing every step of the way to rebuild it all. You've already built the foundation for big. So in the way you use the analogy, Karen, I would say get a bus, as long as what we're talking about are big goals. That doesn't mean business. I think you have to work through your solo business to have enough business that you can then support other people. Because remember, once you get into business with other people, it's not just about you supporting you, it's about you supporting your family and their family.
Sure.
Right? So does that answer that question?
Yes, I understand.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Did we give you the foundation that you thought this would be? Did you give you, so all of the visuals, Jackie, are in the MREA, right? Every single one of them are in the book. So or Google MREA economic model and all the charts will show up. Google MREA budget model and all the visuals will show up. I think that was my problem. I didn't take them from any place specific. I just got them off of the images in Google, and so they were low quality, which meant I couldn't share them so well. But I think that's the best place, either in the book or just Google them, and you'll pop them on the screen.
You can go to Keller Inc. and the MREA section of all of the resources, and all of them are there as PDFs.
Yeah, that's awesome as well. Another resource, right? kellerinc.com. Scroll, go to books, and then scroll to the bottom for MREA, and then scroll to the bottom of MREA, and you have resources there, I believe, is where you find that. All right, guys, so your homework is, if you've never read the Red Book, it's 208. I asked you to start reading at 201, so we'll give you to 211 perhaps to start that reading. And if you haven't read it in the last 12 months, read it again. Right? Get through that book, because it's the blueprint. You want to know how to be successful? Just read the how-to guide on how to be successful in real estate, which is this Red Book. Homework piece number 2, if you've never worked with the economic model, run that pro forma, understand what it is. By the way, if you've ever been to one of our business planning clinics, that's what we do in business planning clinic. We run the economic model so that you can convert your desired income into appointments, and then help you build where you're going to get those appointments from in a lead generation model. But if you haven't done it for this year, or you haven't done it in a while, or it's different, or you want to try it again on your own, go ahead and build that pro forma so that you know what that appointment number is, and then very specifically outline for yourself, based on how many closings you need this year to earn the amount of money you're going to earn, where those appointments are going to show up from, source by source by source. If you take nothing else from today, understand that those are the important steps for you to create a foundation to build a big business. Frankly, you have to use the foundation to build a small business first, and then grow it to a medium business, and then push it to a big business. But it's all the same foundation. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Have a lovely afternoon. We will see you later or tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for our Tuesday Zoom. Have a great one.